All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. A couple of years ago, just to preface this episode, I had a random email from a musician from Churchill, Manitoba, who's actually from Australia, and his name was Rob Nags. He's been on the show a handful of times since, and some of those episodes with him have been, pretty popular. They keep coming up every year. People keep listening to them, which is great because he makes fantastic music. But little did I know there was not only one person from that part of the world in the very small community of Churchill. So the guest on this episode is also, I guess, a transplanted Churchill is what we can call you. And I think the best way to start it off maybe is if you want to introduce yourself and then just give a bit of background about how you came to be in northern Manitoba.
Sure. Well, my name's Roy Mexted, and I was born in New Zealand, but I'm also Australian. And I've been traveling a few different countries with my girlfriend over the last few years, and we decided to come to Canada. Well, she did. I was happy to settle somewhere in Australia or New Zealand because I was ready to settle down, done enough traveling, but she really wanted to come here. She's French, so she had
Okay.
sort of a connection, a feeling to come to Canada. It was just a dream in our minds. We didn't know anything about this place. I knew it was great, but I didn't. I thought, okay, there's great countries that I'm probably never going to get to go to, but
Yeah.
but we ended up coming here and we traveled. We done with the Whistler ski season. We traveled up BC to Alaska, and we went down to California. Then I was looking for somewhere. If it was going to be my last stint in Canada, I wanted to go somewhere unique, somewhere that was going to surprise me, somewhere a challenge. And so I found a job here in Churchill online, working for the Seaport Hotel as a cook. So I'd
Okay.
been doing a few kitchen hand cooking jobs on my travels. So I became a cook here, and I worked for bear season, and because that was the interesting time to come, and I seen polar bears, and I worked in the restaurant, and I played some music. I played live gigs in the lounge bar, and that was great. And my girlfriend was in Montreal visiting a friend for a few months skiing and things. And I said, well, you know what, we can actually come here and we can get our residency through working here because there's jobs here to
Yeah.
fill. And we kind of done that. And then when she got here, she was like, oh my God, this place is great. Maybe in a week after that, she was like, I hate this place. You can't go anywhere. There's literally no roads. There's a handful of like restaurants that are only open at certain times. But we fell in love with it after a bit longer because I took my girlfriend Mary to the dog yard here, the Witchpolice Adventures. And now she's a fully blown dog sledder, training dogs. And so I'm in this cabin here where we bought this old house, and we've been renovating it for the last year or so. We live about 12 k's out of town,
Okay.
in a little cottage area, and we're just living the Canadian life, I guess. It's pretty great. It's worked out well. I just happened that way, really.
So you're very isolated. I mean, Churchill itself is isolated enough, but you're even outside of that community in the rural part of Churchill, I guess, right?
Totally, yeah. Like we have power here, electricity, but we have to bring our own water in, and sort your own like septic situation.
Okay.
There's polar bears walking around the house in bear season, and there's foxes, and there's a moose down the road the other day, and we're in the midst of it. It's great. You just at least you get the excitement, except for the mosquitoes. It's worse here than the town, the mosquitoes, because it's more muskeg and bush. So it's chaos for a few weeks with the mosquitoes. Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I know a lot of people who have moved to Canada from other countries, lots of friends and coworkers and family and everything like that. But you've gone a little extreme, right? I mean, you've gone so far off the beaten path. I mean, plenty of people in Manitoba have not even been to Churchill, right? I mean, Churchill is I mean, Winnipeg is one thing, but Churchill is this whole other universe almost, because it's so far away, and to get there is not easy, and the polar bears and everything else. So how did you even find out about it in the first place? Like, had you heard of Churchill before, or did you just sort of stumble upon it?
Well, I remember I was in Vegas, and we knew we were going to be coming up, and I'm going to get a job before we get to Canada.
Yeah.
Again, after a trip there, and I was looking for just extreme wild places, and I found that series on YouTube, The Polar Bear Town. And I think I just by watching the intro for that town, where there's polar bears going around, and it's a remote, unique place, and it's a tourist town. I mean, when I've been traveling throughout like Australia and New Zealand and some of Europe, and Asia, I would always look for the tourist hotspots because then I could play live gigs.
Sure, makes sense. Yeah.
And yeah, and you have the buzz of people coming to see whatever's there, and whatever is there. I also worked in some tourist sort of jobs. You get to do normally you get to do the tourist things for free while you're doing it as well. Um, so that's what drew me here in the beginning. But then you get here and it's you still don't know what you're getting until you get here. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and then your record that I've heard, I'm not sure if that's the only one you have out or if you have other ones as well, but it's very Churchill specific. I mean, you are very clearly influenced by your surroundings in the making of that album. So, what is your sort of musical background?
Okay, well, I guess I've been since I was in a school band at high school, I've been playing in rock bands and been singing in rock bands, and I lived in Scotland for about 5 years and then singing in rock bands, and but always kind of moving every couple of years or whatever. So I always wanted to sort of write an album about where I was. I kind of have the influences from some Australian rock.
Okay.
John Williamson was a guy that was a folk singer in Australia that I never liked when I was growing up. I thought it was crap. I wanted to listen to Nirvana and Metallica.
Of course, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But as I got older and traveled around Australia and listening to those songs as I traveled, it's storytelling, and
Yeah.
it's capturing the beauty of nature and the people in there. So as all those stories, as we decided we're going to live here, and all of a sudden I'm just exploding with inspiration, and I sort of thought I'm sure I can write at least one album about all of the things going on here. And every song's got a story. If you listen to the song, the album, some of them you'll relate to generally, and other things are specific about the place.
Yeah.
But it's about the beauty up here. I try to make it so it's celebrating the beauty of the North and of Churchill and the people here.
Do
Yeah.
do you think that your outsider experience makes it easier to kind of view the area and the people and everything, the nature, as a way to tell stories? I mean, do you think if you've been born there and grew up there, would you have the same perspective on it?
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. How you make that distinction. I mean, I've come here, and I'm just I'm still it's still novel to me, and it probably will be forever because I've grown up where there's only one season,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
hot or maybe a little bit hotter, to having the amazing changes of the seasons here and things like that. You're always on your toes, and there's always something to take a picture of or write a song
Sure, yeah.
about. And sure, the people here may not, a lot of them really do appreciate it, but I can tell maybe in the young people, it just reminds me of when I grew up in a small country town. All I wanted to do was get out of there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it. Yeah.
What do your friends back home think about this whole venture of yours? I mean, it's not only have you moved to Canada, which, I mean, the weather, as you mentioned, the seasons are very different, and there's that whole aspect of it. But again, you've gone extreme. And I mean, like tonight in Winnipeg, it's going to be, I think, -36. I'm assuming you guys have it even worse up there. So, I mean, what has that been like for people who know you from the one season country, right? Like,
Yeah, well, it's almost impossible to explain, and to people for them to get it. I mean, I
yeah,
tell my nieces and nephews, you know how cold it is in the freezer, right? It's like -8 or something.
yeah,
This is like 3 times colder than walking into your freezer.
yeah.
Uh, and then it gets, so say it gets to -30, it also gets to +30. So that's
Of
just
course,
an
yeah.
amazing. And I mean, some of my friends are just like, yeah, totally whacked out by it. Like, wow, man, you've really gone out there. You're living in this little, like, you're in the woods in northern Canada now. What have
Yeah.
you done? Yeah. So yeah, they're really spun out by it for sure.
What has the reception to your music been in Churchill? I mean, I'm assuming you're playing a lot of these songs live whenever you have an opportunity to. Right now, no one has really much opportunity to play shows
Mhm.
anywhere because of the pandemic. But what has the reception been? You're writing about this community that a lot of people are from, and will recognize the stories and the scenery and what you're describing.
Oh, it's going across really well, and it's been good for some projects that I've done and some other people are doing where they need music to go with maybe a
Mhm.
video project, because it's really sort of grown out of here. I kind of wrote the album also to be able to showcase these songs to the tourists when they came here. So I did get a chance. I brought it the album out, I think last January.
Okay.
So I just had enough time to do a couple of gigs when there was. I think I've done some gigs when there was some tourists here for the Northern Light season, and I was out in the middle of the tundra in a big tundra buggy.
Cool.
With the Northern Lights and all little tea lights around in the bus and all these tourists sitting around, and it's great because you've got a captive audience, you know, they can't go anywhere. And I'd tell my stories. I'd tell a story about every song and then play the songs, and it goes over really, really nicely like that. And that's really why, part of the reason I wrote the songs to give me something to do with as a performer. And I play them. I play them around the place, and people play them in their cars, and people sing them to me down the street sometimes. Yeah, it's pretty cool. They're taking it well, and I hope I can write some more. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's what you want, right? Especially when you're writing about someone else's. I mean, it's your community now, but it's as a recent, I guess, relatively recent. What the word is, new resident, I guess. Like it's I guess there's some nerves, right? About can you do them justice? Can you do the town justice and the
totally
and wildlife and
yeah. I mean, the song, the Ballad of Dave Daly. Dave Daly is a good friend of ours, and my girlfriend works for him. He's the he owns Witchpolice Adventures, and I first played that song to him on Christmas Day, and it was nerve-wracking because it was about him, and I was like, I hope it all went across well, and it did. And now he brags about, have you got a song written about you? So that's what he says to everyone now. So yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. How has the pandemic been for you? Because I mean, again, Churchill alone is isolated, and you're even more isolated. And I know in the north now. I'm not sure about Churchill particularly, but the north is getting particularly bad as far as cases of the coronavirus lately. Northern Manitoba. So I mean, are you completely locked down at this point? Like, do you feel more isolated than usual in your cabin in the woods, basically?
Well, probably not really, because we're kind of isolated anyway. I talk to my neighbor. I have one neighbor on both sides. Sometimes when I see him, he's like, it's just the same. He doesn't go to town very much anyway.
Right,
You don't see many people. But for me, when it first happened, I think I just started having ideas of what I can do, in the new circumstances. So I made a little video series called Churchill News, and it's like a satirical Churchill news made for Churchill. So, and I've made like 12 episodes now, and there was a Christmas episode, and I poked fun at local people. I sang some of my songs on there, and I pretend to be another couple of characters, like a cook and the weatherman and all this, and it's funny and all the so I found different things to do and online, and I mean, sure, this town hasn't. We haven't had any of the virus here, so
that's awesome. Yeah,
but
lucky.
So we don't really know what it's like for the other towns do, and so that's good. It's good that we've been doing the right thing, and hope it stays that way.
Yeah, for sure. What are the are there a lot of people in Churchill and surrounding area that are not Canadian originally? Like, I mean, when I had Rob on my show, the first time I met him, he sent me an email out of the blue. I had never heard of his music, and I thought, well, this guy from Australia living in Churchill, what the hell? How did he find it? Why is he there? And just the idea of people. I think people don't think about that, right? Like, I mean, there's people from everywhere in every city and town in the province and the country, but Churchill seems so remote and so distant and so kind of like, people think polar bears and that's about it, right? So do you run into a lot of people from other places, or is it very cosmopolitan, I guess, or is it mainly
right, oh yeah, we have got sushi restaurants in every corner. It's not I mean, there's a couple of Australians, and there's like you'll have like your one Russian and your two Filipinos and your one like German and Austrian. There's a couple of like that, but populations here, the indigenous people, some Cree and Inuit, Dene, and my cat's trying to jump on me. Sorry. I just palmed her in the face. No, I didn't mean that. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
So yeah, there's a mixture of people here. As there is a melting pot, and particularly in bear season, we go from like 800 people to 10,000 people
Yeah.
with tourists. And then so you'll see the different guides come back every year, and some of those are like quite international kind of people because they work for tour companies that take people in different places in the world.
Hmm.
So and then we have an influx of those seasonal workers. And then normally, there's a couple of seasonal workers every year that end up getting hooked and
Yeah,
stay,
yeah.
like me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it feels kind of like normal. There's a normal mix of people here. It's not like this strange breed of Churchillians. It's uh, there's a lot of different people
Oh,
here.
that's good to hear. When I was listening to your music, the first thing I thought of is this sounds like Manitoba prairie folk music, because I mean, in this province, folk music is a big thing. It's huge. Winnipeg alone has a massive folk and roots, and that's singer songwriter scene. And there's so many communities outside the city that have their own little scenes like that and everything. So it had that vibe, but then the accent comes in, and so it was clearly, you're not from here, but you have adopted, I think, the Manitoba sound to a certain degree. So did that just sort of come naturally after living here, or was there a sound you were going for? Are there influences? Like, was there anyone, local or Canadian that influenced you in terms of the sonically?
I'd say I don't know enough about the Canadian music industry to be influenced by it.
Okay.
And
So
it's
you
kind
just
of like,
organically, you just soaked it all in, right?
yeah, I mean, I wish I did, and I'm trying to learn more. But I'll be playing a gig, and someone would be say, play some hip. So I was like, who's tragically hip? I didn't know who Tragically Hip was. I didn't know. I knew Neil Young was Canadian, but as I said, I just a lot. I'm just growing into more of a folky country storytelling, honest way of telling my story, my songs. And that's why I don't try to hide my accent or anything. If I'm singing it, I'm singing it from myself, and I'm trying
Yeah.
to be as natural and honest to my own self, which has to come out with the way that you articulate and the way your accent or whatever it comes across.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things that's come up on this podcast over the years, quite frequently, actually, is that I think people in Manitoba, maybe more than other places, I'm not sure, but have a very strong bullshit detector. And there's just like a definite interest in hearing something that's genuine, whatever it is, whatever that kind of honest, artistic expression is. I think people gather for that, whether it sounds good or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus like people trying to put on a thing. Because there's been lots of artists in history of Winnipeg and Manitoba who have tried to be something they're not, try to sound like they're American, tried to, and it never works. People see through it. And I think that for whatever it is about the culture here is people appreciate that kind of genuine expression.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good to hear that you say it that way, because I mean, I know not being a part of this music scene in Canada could go against me in a way, but also I'm just throwing out my ideas and my impression of this beautiful country
Yeah.
in the place that I am, in the way that I know how, and as long as that's honest, and I hope that comes across as being the reason why why people like it, if they like it.
What
So
is your
yeah.
plan going forward with this? I mean, obviously, the whole world is kind of crazy right now because of the pandemic, and the idea of playing shows for a lot of people in a lot of parts of the world is just not happening. But are you planning on, recording a follow up to this record? Are you planning on playing any shows in other parts of Manitoba? What's your sort of long term goal, I guess?
Well, I also come from a performing arts background, and what I've been doing lately, actually, we just I think on Saturday night, which was now the uh, the 23rd of January, we
Hmm.
started our first Churchill variety show, and we got a grant through the Safe at Home Manitoba program.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And we so what we done was bought the gear that we needed, and I've got the Churchill Creative Collective, which I'm a part of as well. We got a lot of artists, and we bought their artwork, and we invited people. We made up some online challenges, and building up to the event, people sent in challenges like making a moose call or making an art piece or something, and we done a random draw, and we had a few people. We had Rob Nags actually was our guest host, our
Oh,
guest
cool.
musician, and yeah, and it ended up going for like 3 hours, and we had people watching the whole time and raving about it on social media. And we're going to do another maybe at least another 3 of these
Cool.
coming up. So that's through my business, Churchill Entertainment. So that'll be live streaming on every 3 weeks on Saturdays. And that's been great. We'll just chuck anything you want into a variety show, can't you? We're playing music, we're doing competitions, we're giving away stuff, we're getting other groups, community groups on the show to talk about the programs that they're doing. So
Cool.
it's bringing people together because, you know, we can all put a Facebook post up and, you know, that's kind of like the best thing we can do to connect and tell people about projects. But you do this live streaming thing, exactly what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
You can bring more people in and spread the ideas.
Do you think that kind of project is helping sort of pull people out of the woodwork who maybe have creative projects that they have music or art that they maybe wanted to share but haven't until now, and now they have this opportunity to do so?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the aim of the project. And we're getting those artists that are not maybe selling like business minded people.
Yeah.
We go and find them and say, hey, we know you can do these great little art pieces. Like, put a few of them together for us and we'll talk about it on the show. And we have a meet the artists. We get artists on the show and we talk to them and just give them a bit of build their profile of what they can, and just get people engaged in making the show, and then obviously engaged in watching the show. So that's going to be that's what I've been working on kind of recently. There's a few things actually, but yeah, I mean, my dream, like, I don't know, is to just do a musical here.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I've actually written one, but it's still need to draft it a few more times maybe, but it's sort of themed up here as well. So that hopefully the next year or so we'll have a Churchill musical.
That's a pretty big undertaking, even just writing it. I mean, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, I love it, but I know it needs to be brainstormed and bounced off other people a lot more before it gets to the right stage. But you know, writing the music for it and scene by scene. But it's one of those things like the pandemic, right? We should all be this. Didn't we say? I just wish I had time to write that book or write
100%.
that play or whatever. And some of us are doing it. Now we have to and support each other to do those things. We can't just still be sitting on the couch spending all that time. That could be our creative time. And we should be doing something with it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, this show wouldn't keep going if people weren't doing that, right? Because I mean, for years I was talking to people about they have a CD coming out, they got a CD release show. Here's the information about that, but that's not happening right now. So it's everyone has to be creative to find ways to continue doing something. So yeah, it's been a weird time, but I have a genuine hope that people will come out of this with a whole bunch of stuff that they've been working on that no one knew about, and maybe someone will come out and they'll have recorded an album that no one knew they had even played music, and it'll come out and it'll be great. Or people have be written a book or written a musical or a play, and I'm sort of, every time I see something like that happen, I'm very excited because it just means that people are at least using this time to do something positive and something creative.
Well, good on you for reaching out and spreading it on people's behalf and I mean, so you're in Winnipeg. Can you tell me what's the music scene like in Winnipeg now? Is it
well, nothing's happening right now, right? I mean, there's but the music scene in Winnipeg is it's excellent. I mean, I've been doing this show for 8 years, and I have barely even scratched the surface of interviewing everyone in the music. I mean, I've done 560 some episodes, and there's hundreds of bands I haven't even approached yet. It's just so deep and so rich, and there's so much great history. I mean, you mentioned Neil Young. Neil Young went to high school here. His first bands were when he was in Winnipeg, and there's all that 60s history, and then there's like some really great punk bands in the 80s, like Propaganda was from here, and, in the early 90s, and there's just like the massive hip hop scene with deep history, going back to 20-30 years, and it seems like every day I hear about 5 or 6 new artists that just come out of nowhere, and they're great, and it's really, for such a small city, in the scheme of things, we have a disproportionate number of artists. And I think what people tell me, because I always want to know why Winnipeg is like this, people seem to think it's because of the weather, because we have 6 months of the year where we're basically housebound. I mean, you can still go out and do stuff, but you're indoors, so you start a band or you record a solo album or whatever. And I think that sort of explains why there's so many artists here, and most of them are great. So it's yeah, I don't think I'll ever run out of people to talk to, which is cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think a few times I've gone to Winnipeg for a few days here and there and gone out to see what I could find, and there's there's bands. It's in every little corner, and little like just like the little cafes with people playing. So it was hard to find it to decide where to go. I was just hopping around from place to place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the summer, it's great for that too, because there's so many little festivals because we have such a short summer. I mean, as you know, Manitoba summers are beautiful, but they're not the lengthiest. So people cram in the amount of little festivals and outdoor shows and things, within that 2 or 3 months. And it seems like every weekend there's something going on, which is cool. It's yeah.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we're trying to have some sort of get that kind of ball rolling up here. We do have, well, I just want to get behind everything. I'm just excited with the possibilities to things up here I'm just kind of like concentrating on Churchill because I know that there's just great people up here, and once you get them out and you get them excited about something, and just moves on to the next thing and the next thing. And yeah.
Well, once the pandemic eases up a bit, you have to come down and play some shows in Winnipeg.
Oh, I'd love to.
There's enough there's enough venues and enough bands out there. I'm sure you could find someone to put you on a bill.
Okay, well, I would love that eventually, but yeah.
Because you have a very unique perspective. I mean, the Churchill thing alone, and then just you've obviously traveled the world. You've had a lot of interesting experiences. So, and I think that comes through in the songwriting. So, yeah, I think that people would dig what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could feel myself in a little cafe sipping on a chai.
Yeah, there you go.
Talking about my songs and
yeah. So for people who are hearing about you for the first time on this podcast, which honestly the listeners are mainly in Winnipeg, so that's probably pretty much everyone. What's the best way to find out more about what you're doing and to hear your music and maybe see some of these other projects you've been working on?
Okay, so my Facebook page and my website is called Churchill Entertainment, and it's on YouTube as well. So that's where you can see my songs. You can buy the CD. Here's my CD. So the CD is called Smiling Like a Sundog. And you can also stream it on Spotify and all the streaming platforms. And on there's videos like most things, all the events in town. I usually make a short video of it. Like there was the Boxing Day dog sled ride,
cool.
The Christmas parade, the music fest, the talent quest, and then I have a series called Beyond the White Bear, which talks to the tour operators about things that they're doing with the bears and the whales, and we go out whale watching and all these things. So all of those are different series on my Facebook. I'm just working on a web page, but it's called churchillentertainment.com as well. So yeah, Churchill Entertainment, that's the word. Check it out and see what you think. I never expected to make so much stuff about it, but I'm glad the album's done, and I'm just glad it came across professionally with John Paul Peters at Private Ear Recordings.
Yeah.
I really just made it for myself, but if anyone wants it, you can get it or listen to it. Yeah.
Right on.